The Teacher and the Tycoon, A Second Chance at Family. Get ready for a heartwarming tale of unexpected connections, second chances, and the power of chosen family. Hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and tell me in the comments, have you ever felt truly out of place, only to find exactly where you belong? Part 1. A City of Strangers. Valerie Stone woke to the insistent blare of her alarm at 5 a.m. Another day in New York City, a sprawling metropolis that, after 3 weeks, still didn't feel like home. She glanced around the small room she'd rented in a modest Brooklyn neighborhood, its walls faded, the single window looking out onto a narrow alley. Moving boxes still lay stacked in a corner, a testament to her unsettled life. She rose and prepared instant coffee, mentally reviewing her routine. Today was her first day as a teacher at St. Martin's Elementary School, a new beginning. Far from the problems she'd left behind in London, far from her son, Tom, who now lived with his ex-husband. As she showered with barely warm water, the heater worked on its own unpredictable schedule. Valerie rehearsed the speech she'd give her new students. She desperately needed this job. Her savings were dwindling, and the legal fees from Tom's custody battle had consumed nearly everything she owned. She dressed in her only formal outfit, a navy skirt and a white blouse she'd ironed the night before. She took the crowded subway, then walked 10 minutes under a persistent drizzle that threatened to ruin the folder carrying her documents. A few blocks away, Martin Hayes woke in his spacious penthouse apartment in a chic Manhattan building. The 38-year-old entrepreneur stretched and reached for his nightstand, turning off his iPhone alarm. He had 3 important meetings that day and needed to review contracts for his construction company's new acquisition. His housekeeper, Mrs. Green, had already prepared his breakfast: freshly squeezed juice, specialty coffee, and avocado toast. As he ate, he reviewed emails on his latest generation laptop. His assistant had already sent him the complete itinerary for the day. "Sir, shall I wake Lily for school?" Mrs. Green asked from the doorway. Martin looked up, suddenly remembering it was his daughter's first day of classes. "No, I'll wake her. Thank you." He entered Lily's room, decorated like a miniature fantasy world, with imported furniture and toys she barely used. His 9-year-old daughter slept, clutching a worn stuffed animal, the only object she refused to replace since her mother's death a year ago. "Lilybug, time to get up," he said softly, sitting on the edge of her bed. The girl slowly opened her eyes, without the usual sparkle she'd once possessed. Since the accident, Lily barely spoke, barely smiled. "Do I have to go?" she asked in a tiny voice. "Yes, honey. You have a new teacher this year. Maybe you'll like her." Lily didn't respond. She got up and began to put on her uniform without a word. Martin sighed. He had tried 3 different psychologists, expensive vacations, extravagant gifts. Nothing seemed to help his daughter overcome her loss. Meanwhile, Valerie arrived at the school. The building was old but well-maintained, with walls faded by years of sun. The principal, a stern-looking woman, greeted her in her office. "Miss Stone, we're assigning you 4th grade, Group B. There are 25 students, including the daughter of one of our main benefactors." The principal handed her a list of students. Lily Hayes is a special child. She lost her mother last year and has been struggling to adapt. Her father, Mr. Hayes, is very involved in her education. He's a busy but very influential man on the school board. Valerie nodded, thinking of her own struggles with Tom. He, too, suffered since the separation. "I understand. I'll do my best to help her." At 8 o'clock sharp, the children began to arrive. Valerie watched from the doorway, identifying each one with the list in hand. A girl with brown hair and sad eyes entered last, accompanied by a tall man in an immaculate suit that contrasted sharply with the simple clothes of the other parents. "Good morning," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Martin Hayes, Lily's father." "Valerie Stone, the new teacher," she replied, noticing the firmness of his handshake. Their eyes met for an instant. He, with the confidence of someone accustomed to controlling situations. She, with the determination of someone who had learned to survive despite everything. Neither of them knew that this encounter would change their lives forever. Part 2. Unveiling the Past. Martin left the teacher's lounge, frustration etched on his face. 2 weeks had passed since the first day of school, and the principal had urgently summoned him to discuss Lily. He hadn't expected to run into Valerie Stone, much less to hear that his daughter had chosen to write about her late mother. As he drove his Mercedes towards the office, he couldn't stop thinking about what he had read. Lily's words described her mother with details he believed long forgotten. How she sang while cooking, her habit of collecting seashells on every beach they visited, her laughter that sounded like happy bells. "Everything okay, Daddy?" Lily asked from the back seat, interrupting his thoughts. "Yes, Princess. Are you hungry? We can stop for burgers." Lily nodded slightly. Lately, that small gesture was the closest thing to emotion she showed, except apparently in Miss Stone's class. After dropping Lily off with Mrs. Green, Martin locked himself in his office. He picked up the phone and called Robert, his college friend who now worked in immigration. "I need information on someone," he said without greeting. "Valerie Stone, British, arrived recently. She's Lily's new teacher." "Problems at school?" Robert asked. "Not exactly. I just want to know who I'm dealing with." Robert sighed on the other end of the line. "Give me a couple of days." Meanwhile, in her small apartment, Valerie graded papers while eating instant soup. The encounter with Martin Hayes had left her uneasy. There was something in his eyes, a mix of pain and pride, that felt strangely familiar. It reminded her of herself when she was fighting for Tom's custody, willing to do anything to protect what she loved. Her phone vibrated with a video call. Tom's smiling face appeared on the screen. "Mom, look what I made at school," the 12-year-old exclaimed, showing off a model of the solar system. "That's incredible, my love," Valerie responded, feeling the familiar ache of distance. "How are classes going?" The conversation flowed for several minutes until a male voice interrupted off-camera. "Tom, dinner, your time's up." The boy's face fell. "I have to go, Mom. Dad says I can only talk to you on Tuesdays and Fridays." "But today is Tuesday, sweetheart." "Yeah, but he says the 20 minutes are up." Valerie bit back her anger. The virtual visitation agreement stipulated an hour, not 20 minutes. But arguing would only worsen the situation. "It's okay, my love. We'll talk on Friday. I love you." After hanging up, she threw a cushion against the wall. Her ex-husband continued to do everything he could to keep her away from Tom, using his influence as a judge to manipulate the system. That abuse of power was precisely what had led her to confront him, which resulted in her spending 3 days in jail for contempt of court. The next day, Valerie noticed something different about Lily. The girl raised her hand during math class and even smiled when she correctly solved a problem. During recess, while supervising the playground, she observed Lily sitting alone under a tree. She approached and sat beside her. "Don't you want to play with the others?" Lily shook her head. "I like being alone. I like solitude sometimes too," Valerie responded. They sat in silence for a few moments until Lily spoke. "My dad read my essay about Mom. I saw him crying last night." Valerie didn't know how to respond. "Is it bad that I wrote about her?" Lily asked. "Dad never talks about Mom. It's like he wants me to forget her." "It's not bad, Lily. Sometimes adults don't know how to handle pain." "Did you lose someone too?" Valerie hesitated before answering. "In my own way, yes. My son lives very far away, with his dad." "Why doesn't he live with you?" It's complicated, Valerie replied. His dad is a very powerful man, and sometimes power is stronger than justice, Lily said, looking at her intently. My dad is powerful too. Everyone is afraid of him. And are you afraid of him? No, but sometimes I think he's afraid of me, Lily said, with a wisdom that didn't match her 9 years. Afraid I'll talk about Mom, and he'll get sad again. Part 3. A Father's Dilemma. 3 days later, Martin received a call from Robert. I found something about your British teacher. She was jailed in London for contempt of court during her divorce proceedings. Her ex is a pretty well-known judge. There are rumors of corruption, but nothing proven. Martin felt a mix of alarm and curiosity. Jailed? And the school hired her? It was only 3 days. Technically, she doesn't have a criminal record. After hanging up, Martin looked at the folder containing Lily's essay. He had to make a decision. Should he distance his daughter from the influence of a woman with a troubled past, or acknowledge that for the first time in a year, Lily was smiling again? The doorbell rang, and Lily ran to open the door, finding Valerie holding a small gift wrapped in colorful paper. Teacher, you came, Lily exclaimed with a wide smile, something that continued to surprise Martin every time it happened. I promised I'd come to your party, Valerie replied, stepping into the elegant apartment. Happy birthday, Lily. Martin watched from the hallway, still uncomfortable with the teacher's presence in his home. After discovering her story in London, he had investigated further. Valerie's ex-husband, Judge Richard Taylor, was known for his controversial rulings and political connections. According to some articles, Valerie had been arrested when she tried to present evidence that Taylor had manipulated the custody trial. Mr. Hayes, thank you for the invitation, Valerie said, extending her hand. Thank you for coming, Martin replied formally. Lily insisted. The party was small. A few classmates, 2 of Lily's cousins, and Martin's parents. Lily had asked for something intimate, nothing like the extravagant celebrations of previous years. While the children played, Martin found himself alone with Valerie on the terrace. The sunset painted the New York sky in shades of orange and purple. Lily seems more cheerful, Valerie commented, breaking the awkward silence. She's been very engaged in class this week. Martin nodded, holding his wine glass. Yes, she talks more at home too. She even asked me if we could visit Chloe's grave next weekend. And what did you tell her? That we would go, Martin said in a low voice. It will be the first time since the funeral. A silence settled between them, not as tense as before. Can I ask you something, Valerie? Martin finally asked. Why did you leave London? She looked at him directly, as if assessing how much he already knew. I suppose you've already investigated me, she responded with a slight smile. It's not hard to find information when you have the right contacts. Martin had the decency to look embarrassed. I have a daughter. I need to know who's close to her. I understand, Valerie said, without a trace of resentment. I would do the same for Tom. Your son? Valerie nodded, looking towards the horizon. He's 12. He lives with his father in London. Judge Richard Taylor, my ex-husband, a respectable man who uses his power to keep me away from my son. I read about your arrest, Martin admitted. I tried to present evidence that he had manipulated testimonies during the custody trial. I was found in contempt and spent 3 days in jail, she explained bitterly. When I got out, custody had already been decided. Now, I can only see Tom twice a year and talk to him via video call twice a week when his father allows it. Martin remained silent, processing the information. He had expected to find an opportunist, perhaps someone with dubious intentions. Instead, he saw a mother fighting for her child just as he fought to protect Lily. Why New York? He asked. I needed to get away, to start fresh where no one knew my story, where I wasn't just Judge Taylor's ex, Valerie replied. And because here, money goes further, I'm saving to hire better lawyers. The conversation was interrupted by Lily, who appeared on the terrace. "Daddy, we're going to cut the cake now." Inside, Valerie watched as Martin helped Lily blow out the candles. There was pain in his eyes, probably thinking of Chloe. But there was also love and hope, something Valerie recognized well. Later, when almost all the guests had left, Lily insisted on showing Valerie her room. Among toys and books, there was a small altar with photos of Chloe. "My grandma helped me make it," Lily explained, "so Mom is always with me." Valerie knelt beside her. "It's beautiful, Lily. Teacher, do you think you'll ever see your son again?" The question took Valerie by surprise. "I'm doing everything I can to make that happen." "My daddy could help you," Lily said, with the simple logic of a child. "He can do anything." Martin, who had entered silently, overheard his daughter's last words. "Lily, it's time for the teacher to go. It's late." At the door, Valerie said goodbye to Lily with a hug. Then she looked at Martin. "Thank you for letting me come. It means a lot to Lily." "To me too," he replied, surprising himself. "Lily trusts you, and that's valuable to me." After Valerie left, Martin remained thoughtful. That night, he took out his laptop and began to search for information about Judge Richard Taylor. What he found disturbed him: accusations of bribery, suspiciously resolved cases in favor of powerful businessmen, and a shelved investigation into money laundering. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer. "Arthur, I need you to investigate something for me. It's about a judge in London." Part 5. A New Alliance. The next day, as he waited for Lily at school pickup, Martin saw Valerie speaking animatedly with the children. For the first time, he saw her smile unreservedly, and something stirred within him. It wasn't just admiration for the woman who had brought a smile back to his daughter's face, but something more complicated, something he hadn't felt since Chloe, and that terrified him. The school waiting room was empty, except for Martin, who nervously checked his watch for the third time. His meeting with the principal should have started 15 minutes ago, but an urgent issue had delayed her. While he waited, he heard shouting coming from the playground. He peered through the window and saw a group of children surrounding someone. Among the heads, he distinguished Lily in the center, cowering as an older girl yelled at her. "My dad says your teacher is crazy, that she was thrown out of her country for being a criminal." Martin was about to go out when he saw Valerie appear like a whirlwind. Firmly, but without aggression, she dispersed the group and knelt beside Lily. "Are you okay?" he heard her ask. Lily nodded, wiping away tears. Valerie stood up and looked at the girl who had been shouting. "Sophia, this is unacceptable. Come with me right now." Martin returned to the waiting room, processing what he had just witnessed. The principal appeared minutes later. "Apologies for the delay, Mr. Hayes. We had an incident on the playground." "I saw it," Martin replied. "What's going on?" The principal sighed. "Unfortunately, some parents have been commenting on Miss Stone's past. It seems someone found out about her situation in London." Martin felt a pang of guilt. Could his investigation have sparked the rumors? And what is the school's position on this? Miss Stone was completely transparent during her hiring. "Her legal situation is in order," the principal responded. "She is an excellent teacher, and the children adore her, especially Lily." That afternoon, picking up Lily, Martin found her quieter than usual. "Do you want to talk about what happened today, Princess?" Lily shook her head, looking out the car window. "Miss Valerie defended me," she finally said. "Sophia said mean things about her, but the teacher didn't get angry. She just talked to her calmly." Martin watched his daughter in the rearview mirror. There was admiration in her voice. "You like your teacher a lot, don't you?" "She's the only one who doesn't look at me like I'm broken," Lily replied, with a wisdom that wrung his heart. Like everyone else does since Mom died. 2 days later, Martin waited for Valerie outside the school. He had called her to invite her for coffee. They needed to talk. "Thanks for coming," he said when he saw her arrive. They walked to a nearby coffee shop. Valerie looked tired, with prominent dark circles under her eyes. "Is everything all right?" Martin asked. "I've had better days," she replied with a forced smile. "What did you want to talk about?" "About what's happening at school, the rumors." Valerie sighed, stirring her coffee. "It's not the first time my past has haunted me. I'm used to it." "You shouldn't have to get used to it," Martin said, with more vehemence than he intended. "I've investigated your ex-husband." She looked at him, surprised. "Why would you do that?" "At first, to protect Lily," he admitted. "Afterward, for you." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. "Richard Taylor is involved in corruption cases," Martin continued. "I have friends who could help you with your custody case." Valerie looked at him with a mix of hope and distrust. "Why would you help me?" "Because I see how you are with Lily. Because you deserve to be with your son." Valerie's phone interrupted the conversation. Seeing the screen, her expression changed. "It's from London," she murmured, answering the call. "Hello?" Martin watched her face go from surprise to joy, and then to suspicion. "Are you sure?" she asked. "No, I don't trust him." "When?" Her voice trembled. "I'll be there." When she hung up, her hands were shaking. "It was Richard's lawyer. He says he wants to resolve shared custody. He summoned me to London next week." "Do you believe him?" "No," she replied. "But it's the first time in 3 years he's offered to negotiate. I have to try. It could be a trap. I know. But he's my son, Martin." He nodded, understanding perfectly. "When are you traveling?" "Friday. I'll have to ask for leave at school." "I'll take you to the airport," Martin offered without thinking. Valerie smiled genuinely this time. "It's not necessary." "I insist." Over the next few days, Martin noticed a change in Valerie. She was anxious, alternating between hope and fear. It reminded him of himself after Chloe's accident. That constant state of alert, waiting for someone to tell him it had all been a mistake, that she would return. Part 6. A Leap of Faith. The morning of the trip, Martin picked Valerie up at her apartment. The contrast between their worlds had never been more evident than seeing the small, modest place where she lived. "It's not much, but it's temporary," she said, noticing his gaze. "When I get Tom back, we'll look for something better." On the way to the airport, they spoke little. Lily had insisted on accompanying them and was now dozing in the back seat. "Are you scared?" Martin finally asked. "I'm terrified," Valerie confessed. "Richard never does anything without a hidden motive. Do you want me to contact someone in London? I have partners there." She shook her head. "I prefer to keep a low profile, but thank you." At the terminal, Lily woke up and hugged Valerie tightly. "Bring your son with you, teacher. I want to meet him." "I'll do my best, Lily," Valerie replied, touched. Martin approached when Lily walked away to buy water. "Here," he said, handing her a piece of paper. "It's my personal number and my lawyer's in London. Call me if you need anything." Valerie looked into his eyes, feeling that strange bond that had grown between them. "Why are you doing this, Martin?" He didn't have a clear answer, or maybe he did, but he wasn't ready to admit it. "Because Lily needs you," he finally said. "And because I think I do too." They looked at each other in silence, recognizing that something had changed between them. Valerie approached and hugged him briefly. "Thank you," she whispered. Martin watched her walk away towards the boarding area, with a mix of concern and a feeling he didn't dare to name. Only when the plane took off did he admit to himself that he was scared. Scared she wouldn't come back. Scared of losing someone important again. 3 days later, at midnight, his phone rang, an unknown number from London. "Martin?" Valerie's voice sounded shaky. "I was arrested upon arrival. I'm at Central London Police Station. Please call your lawyer." The call cut off before he could respond. The flight to London was the longest of Martin's life. As the plane cut through the night, he couldn't stop thinking about Valerie, locked in some British cell. His lawyer, Arthur Sterling, dozed in the adjacent seat after explaining the legal situation they faced. "The accusation is attempted kidnapping," Arthur had said, reviewing the documents he'd obtained through local contacts. "Taylor alleges Valerie was planning to take Tom out of the country without authorization." "That's absurd," Martin protested. "She hasn't even seen the boy." Absurd, but effective. The judge handling the case is a personal friend of Taylor's. They landed at dawn. A black car awaited them at the terminal, courtesy of Martin's London partners. During the drive to the police station, Arthur reviewed the strategy. "We can't directly confront Taylor. He has too much influence. We need media pressure and evidence of judicial manipulation." The police station was a gray, worn building in central London. Inside, the air smelled of cheap disinfectant and stale coffee. Martin had to restrain himself from demanding to see Valerie immediately. "I am Mrs. Stone's lawyer," Arthur said to the duty officer. "I demand to see my client and know the formal charges." After an hour of waiting and multiple calls, they were finally allowed to see Valerie. When she entered the small visiting room, Martin barely recognized her. She had deep dark circles under her eyes, disheveled hair, and wrinkled clothes. But her eyes still showed the same fierce determination. "You didn't have to come," were her first words. "This is my battle, not yours." "You're not alone in this anymore," Martin replied. Arthur intervened, explaining that they had hired a local legal team and were working to secure her release on bail. "Have you seen Tom?" Valerie asked, her voice broken. Martin shook his head. "Not yet, but we'll find him." While Arthur stayed with Valerie, reviewing legal details, Martin stepped out to make calls. His London partner had located Tom's school, a private academy in North London. At noon, Martin waited in his car outside the school. He had studied the photos Valerie kept on her phone, memorizing the boy's face. When the bell rang, hundreds of students streamed out. Among them, he spotted a thin 12-year-old boy with Valerie's same dark, curly hair. "Tom," he said, approaching carefully so as not to startle him. "I'm a friend of your mom's." The boy looked at him with suspicion. "My dad says not to talk to strangers. Your mom is in the city," Martin continued. "She wants to see you." Tom's eyes lit up briefly before becoming cautious. Why didn't she come herself? Martin hesitated. He couldn't tell him the truth. "She's handling some things. She asked me to find you." A middle-aged woman quickly approached. "Tom, come here," she ordered, taking the boy's arm. "Who are you?" "A family friend," Martin replied. "I just wanted to say hello to Tom." "Judge Taylor hasn't authorized any visits," the woman said coldly. "Let's go, Tom." But before leaving, the boy turned. "Is my mom okay?" he asked quietly. "She misses you very much," was all Martin could say. Back at the hotel, Martin received a call from Arthur. They had secured Valerie's provisional release. The bail was exorbitant, but Martin paid it without blinking. When Valerie arrived at the hotel that night, she looked exhausted, but relieved. "I can't believe you're doing all this," she said, as she drank the tea Martin had ordered. "We barely know each other." "I know you well enough," he replied. "I saw Tom today." Valerie almost spilled her tea. "How is he? What did he say? Does he seem happy?" "He's identical to you," Martin smiled. "He seems like a good kid, but what? He didn't seem to be getting the care he deserves. His clothes were unkempt, and he looked sad." Valerie closed her eyes, holding back tears. "Richard has never really taken care of him. He uses him as a way to control me." Arthur entered with news. He had secured an emergency hearing with another judge, one known for her integrity. "It won't be easy," he warned, "but we have evidence of irregularities in how the previous case was handled." "What evidence?" Valerie asked, confused. Martin pulled a folder from his briefcase. I've been investigating your ex-husband since you told me your story. We found suspicious patterns in his rulings, connections to corruption cases, and testimonies from other people who went through similar situations to yours. Valerie looked at him in astonishment. Why would you do all this for me? Martin didn't have a simple answer. He thought of Lily, how Valerie had managed to bring a smile back to his daughter's face. He thought of Chloe and a letter he had found months after her death, where she asked him not to close himself off to love if anything happened to her. Because it's the right thing to do, he finally said. Part 7. Victory and Homecoming. The hearing took place 2 days later. The new judge, a woman in her 60s with a stern expression, listened to the arguments from both sides. When Judge Richard Taylor entered the room, Martin felt the hatred emanating from him. The judge reviewed the evidence presented by Arthur and contrasted it with Taylor's accusations. The evidence of attempted kidnapping is circumstantial at best, she finally declared, and there are serious doubts about the impartiality of the previous process. I grant provisional custody to Mrs. Stone until a complete evaluation of the family situation is carried out. Valerie stifled a sob of joy. Martin squeezed her hand under the table. When they left the courthouse, Tom was waiting in the hallway with a social worker. Seeing Valerie, he ran to her and hugged her as if fearing she would disappear. Mom, you came for me? Always, my love. I will always come for you, Valerie replied through tears. Tom looked at Martin with curiosity. Is he your boyfriend? Valerie blushed. He's a good friend who helped me a lot. Martin smiled at the boy and extended his hand. I'm Martin. I have a daughter who's very eager to meet you. Hours later, while Tom slept in the adjacent hotel room, Valerie and Martin spoke in low voices. We'll return to New York as soon as the judge authorizes our departure from the country, she said. I can't believe this is happening. Lily will be happy to meet Tom. Valerie looked at him with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You don't have to, he replied. They fell silent, aware of the connection that had grown between them during those intense days. What happens now? Valerie finally asked. Martin thought of Lily, of Tom, of Valerie's tiny apartment. One step at a time, he replied. But you won't be alone in this again, I promise you. The return to New York marked the beginning of a new chapter. Valerie and Tom temporarily settled into a small hotel near the school, while they searched for an apartment they could afford on a teacher's salary. This place is amazing, Mom, Tom said as he explored the hotel room, which to him seemed like a palace after the difficult years in London. Can we really stay here? For now, my love, Valerie replied. Soon we'll find our own home. Tom's adjustment to his new life wasn't easy. The language barrier, cultural differences, and the trauma of separation had made him quiet and distrustful. Only with Lily did he seem to feel comfortable from the very first moment. Your mom is the best teacher in the world, Lily told him during their first meeting while sharing fries on the school playground. My dad says she's very brave, like a warrior. Tom smiled proudly. She is. She never stopped fighting for me. Valerie watched the interaction between the children with a lump in her throat. After being separated for so long, being a full-time mother again was wonderful and overwhelming at the same time. One afternoon, 2 weeks after their return, Martin appeared at the hotel with an unexpected proposal. My company has apartments for visiting executives, he explained as they walked through the nearby park. There's one available in Manhattan. It's yours if you want to use it, no cost. Valerie stopped and looked at him seriously. I appreciate everything you've done for us, Martin. Truly. But I can't accept something like that. Why not? Because I need to do this for myself, for Tom. to show him we can make it on our own efforts." Martin remained silent, respecting her decision, even if he didn't share it. "At least let me help you find something safe in a good neighborhood," he finally offered, "for the children. Lily wants Tom to live nearby." Valerie smiled at the mention of Lily. It's incredible how quickly they became friends. "Lily says Tom is like the brother she always wanted to have," Martin commented. "I haven't seen her so happy since Chloe," Valerie completed softly. They looked at each other in silence, aware of how much they had shared in such a short time. Loss, pain, the fight for their children. And now, this new beginning, neither of them expected. Part 8. A New Kind of Family. 3 days later, with Martin's help, Valerie found a small but bright apartment a few blocks from the school. The rent was within her budget, though she suspected Martin had intervened to get a favorable price. The first night in their new home, Tom was already asleep when someone knocked on the door. It was Martin, holding a large plant with glossy leaves. "A housewarming gift," he said, a little awkward. "Lily insisted you needed something alive to make the place a home." Valerie invited him in. The apartment was still half empty, with unpacked boxes and basic furniture. "It's not much, but it's ours," she commented as she prepared coffee. "It's perfect," Martin replied sincerely. "It has your essence." They sat on the small balcony, contemplating the city lights. The night was cool, but pleasant. "Lily asked today if we could invite you two for dinner on Friday," Martin said after a while. "She's planning an entire menu with Mrs. Green." "Tom would love that," Valerie said. "He talks about Lily and you all the time." "About me?" Valerie smiled. "He says you're like the superheroes in his comic books, the man who crossed a continent to save his mom." Martin looked away, uncomfortable with the recognition. Anyone would have done the same. "No, Martin, not anyone." The silence between them grew heavy with unspoken attraction, a pull they both felt, but neither dared to name. Too soon, too complicated with the children involved. Friday dinner became a weekly tradition. Sometimes at Martin's penthouse, other times at Valerie's apartment. Lily and Tom became inseparable, as if they had been lifelong friends. One night, while the adults chatted in the kitchen and the children watched a movie in the living room, Lily asked a question that left them speechless. "Daddy, why don't Valerie and Tom live with us? We have so many empty rooms, and it would be more fun to all be together." Martin and Valerie exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. "It's not that simple, Lily," Martin finally said. "Why not?" the girl insisted. "You like each other, don't you? You're always smiling when you look at each other." Tom nodded, supporting the idea. It would be like having a complete family. That night, after taking the children home, Martin and Valerie walked in silence through the park. "I'm sorry about what the kids said," Martin apologized. "Sometimes Lily just speaks her mind." "Don't worry," Valerie replied. "Tom isn't much for tact either." They stopped in front of an illuminated fountain. "But they're right about one thing," Valerie continued softly. "This is becoming more than friendship, isn't it?" Martin looked into her eyes, feeling that for the first time in a long time, he could be completely honest with someone. "Yes, and it scares me." "Me too," she confessed. "I'm afraid it's too soon, that we're confusing gratitude with something more." "And what if it's not confusion?" Martin asked, moving a little closer. "What if it's real?" Part 9. Building Our Home. The rain gently tapped against the window as Valerie finished grading the last exams. Outside, New York prepared for winter, with gray skies and evenings that darkened early. A month had passed since that conversation by the fountain, a month of knowing glances, casual brushes, and a growing tension neither dared to fully name. Her phone vibrated on the table. A message from Martin. "Can we talk? I'm downstairs." Valerie looked at the clock. 9:30 p.m. Tom was already asleep in his room. She peered out the window and saw Martin's car parked in front of the building. Without thinking twice, she grabbed a jacket and went down. She found him nervously pacing back and forth in the drizzle, a folder in his hand. "Did something happen?" she asked, worried by his serious expression. "I received this today," Martin replied, handing her the folder. "It's an offer for you." Valerie opened the folder and read the heading, International Educational Institute, San Francisco, California. "I don't understand." "It's a prestigious school in California. They're looking for an academic coordinator for their elementary department," Martin explained. "My friend Robert is on the board of directors. I told him about you a while ago, about your work with Lily and the other children." Valerie flipped through the pages, surprised. The salary was 3 times her current pay. It included housing and free education for Tom. "You want me to leave?" she asked, a knot forming in her throat. Martin quickly shook his head. "On the contrary, I wanted to give you options. I know how important your independence and your career are to you." They took shelter from the rain under a nearby awning. Valerie continued to review the documents, trying to process what they meant. "Why are you showing me this now?" Martin took a breath, as if gathering courage. "Because I don't want you to stay out of obligation or gratitude. If you choose to stay in New York, I want it to be a free choice, not because you feel you owe me something." Valerie closed the folder and looked at him directly. "And what if I want to stay for you? For us?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Martin took a step towards her. "That's what I hope for, but I needed to be sure you had alternatives." "There are always alternatives, Martin," Valerie replied with a sad smile. "The question is what we really want." They fell silent, listening to the rain intensify. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Martin continued. "About what Lily said that day, about living together." "Me too. I'm going to be completely honest with you," Martin said, taking her hands. "After Chloe, I thought I would never feel this way about anyone again. The intensity of what I feel for you scares me, but I'm even more scared of losing you." Valerie squeezed his hands, touched. "All my life I've had to fight for what I want," she responded. "With my parents, with Richard, with the judicial system. I'm tired of fighting, Martin. For once, I want to choose the path that makes me happy, not the one that allows me to survive." They looked at each other in silence, understanding what those words meant. "And what path is that?" Martin asked, moving closer. "The one that leads me to you, to Lily, to this life we've started to build together." The intensity of the moment enveloped them. Martin gently caressed her cheek. "It won't be easy. We have wounds, fears, 2 children who depend on us. Nothing important is easy." Valerie smiled. "But for the first time, I'm not fighting alone." The kiss came naturally, as if they had been destined for that moment from the beginning. A soft, tender kiss that contained silent promises and shared hopes. When they separated, the rain had stopped. A passing taxi driver honked, breaking the intimate moment. Both laughed, suddenly aware of the world around them. "Shall we go up?" "Tom's asleep," Valerie offered. In the apartment, they talked for hours. About their fears, about the past, about how they wanted to build this unexpected future. They didn't make grand plans, nor eternal promises, just small, realistic agreements. "I don't want us to live together yet," Valerie said. "We need time. The children need time." "I agree," Martin responded. "Let's do this right, step by step." "But I also don't want to wait to start our story," she added with a smile. "We've already lost too much time in our lives." The next morning, when Tom woke up, he found Martin preparing breakfast in the kitchen. He didn't seem surprised. "Is Lily coming too?" was his only question. "Not today, champ, but you'll see her at school." Over the following weeks, they established a new routine. Separate homes, but intertwined lives. Nights when Martin stayed late. Mornings when all four had breakfast together. There was no rush, no pressure. Just the certainty that, for the first time, both had chosen this path. Not out of necessity, but out of desire. Part 10. A Family of Choice. One Friday evening, while the four of them were having dinner at Martin's place, Lily asked the question that hung in the air. "Are you two dating now?" Martin and Valerie exchanged knowing glances. "Yes," Martin replied simply. "We're together." "Does that mean we're a family?" Lily insisted. Valerie looked at Tom, who awaited the answer with the same curiosity. "We're a different kind of family," she responded. "One we chose to form." "I like that," Lily declared with a smile. "It's better than before." Later, when the children were asleep, Martin and Valerie looked out at the city from the terrace. Winter was beginning to fade, promising warmer days. "Do you know what Tom told me yesterday?" Valerie commented. "That for the first time, he feels like he belongs somewhere." Martin hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I feel the same way. As if, after so much time, I've finally found my way home." 3 months later, the New York spring sun illuminated the park where Lily and Tom played soccer. Valerie, sitting on a bench, graded the last exams of the semester, occasionally looking up to make sure the children were all right. "Tom, pass it!" Lily shouted, fully integrated into her role as midfielder. It was amazing how much things had changed. Lily was no longer the silent, withdrawn girl Valerie had met on her first day of school. Now she laughed, played, and even argued when something seemed unfair. And Tom, who had arrived scared and distrustful from London, now had friends at school, and his grades were improving every week. Valerie smiled, seeing Martin approaching with a shopping bag. They had kept their agreement. They lived in separate houses, but spent almost all their free time together. A relationship built day by day, without pressure or impossible expectations. "I brought snacks," Martin announced, sitting beside her. "How are those exams going?" "Almost done. This group has improved so much." They exchanged knowing glances. The principal had named Valerie cycle coordinator for the next year, a recognition of her dedication and results. The California Institute had called twice more, offering better conditions. But Valerie had already made her decision. "Did you hear from Richard?" Martin asked, passing her a thermos of coffee. "His lawyer called yesterday. He finally signed the international shared custody agreement," Valerie replied, with a mix of relief and caution. "Tom will be able to stay permanently with me in New York and visit his father during vacations." "Do you believe him?" "This time, yes. The media pressure and corruption investigations have him cornered. He can't risk more scandals." Martin took her hand and squeezed it gently. "I'm glad. You both deserve peace after so much." Valerie watched the children, now sitting on the grass, sharing secrets and laughter. "You know what's most incredible? That all this started with a school project about the person I admire most. Lily chose Chloe," Martin recalled nostalgically. "And I attacked you for it. And now we're here," Valerie continued, "building something neither of us imagined possible." The apartment Valerie shared with Tom no longer seemed temporary. They had painted the walls, bought appropriate furniture, and filled every corner with photos and memories. It was a small home, but full of life. Martin's penthouse had also changed. The cold, minimalist rooms now had touches of color, scattered books, and Lily and Tom's toys everywhere. Mrs. Green, who had initially looked at Valerie with suspicion, now taught her New York recipes and saved her leftovers from her favorite stews. That night, while Martin cooked for the four of them, Valerie finished grading the last exams in the living room. Lily and Tom played video games, amicably arguing over who had the best character. "Valerie," Martin called from the kitchen. "Can you come here for a moment?" She put down her papers and went to meet him. She found him stirring a sauce that smelled deliciously of tomatoes and herbs. "Try this," he said, offering her a spoonful. Perfect." Martin looked at her intensely before speaking. "I've been thinking." "That sounds dangerous," she joked. "Very funny." He smiled. "I talked to the kids today." "About what?" "About the possibility of you and Tom moving in here. With us." Valerie froze, surprised by the proposal. "Martin, we agreed to take things slowly. It's only been 3 months. The kids are happy together, you and I. Well, you almost live here anyway." It was true. Lately, Valerie and Tom spent 5 or 6 nights a week at the penthouse. They only returned to their apartment to pick up clothes, or when Valerie needed space to work without distractions. "What did the kids say?" she finally asked. Lily said it was about time, and Tom asked if he could have a dog if we all lived together. Valerie couldn't help but laugh. Always so much of a negotiator, just like his mother. Martin put down the spoon and took her hands. "You don't have to decide now. It's just an idea." "It's a good idea," she replied after a moment. "But I have one condition, which is, I'll keep my apartment for now, as a plan B. Not because I don't trust us, but because you need to know you have options," Martin completed, understanding her perfectly. "That seems fair." They kissed softly, sealing an agreement that went beyond words. Dinner was filled with laughter and plans to reorganize the rooms. Lily insisted that Tom take the room next to hers so they could talk through the wall at night. At the end of the evening, when the children were already in their rooms, Martin and Valerie stayed on the balcony, contemplating the illuminated city. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real," Valerie confessed. "After everything we went through." "It is," Martin assured, hugging her. "It's not perfect, but it's ours." "I don't need perfection," she replied. "Just this. A family built with honesty, with respect. A family we chose to form." Lily appeared at the balcony door, her hair disheveled and her eyes sleepy. "We're a family now, right?" she asked with the innocence and wisdom only children possess. Martin smiled, extending his arm to include her in the hug. "We are, Princess, each in our own way, and that's what matters." Did you love this story of Valerie and Martin? A British teacher and a New York entrepreneur who found love when they least expected it, uniting their lives and their children's into a family chosen with freedom and respect. If this story of second chances touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone special, and leave a comment about which moment moved you the most. Tell us in the comments what country you're watching this story from. Do you identify with Valerie fighting against injustice? Or perhaps with Martin, learning to open himself to love again after a loss? Subscribe to the channel for more stories that celebrate love in all its forms and the family bonds we choose to create.